Hello everybody, we're going to talk about shifting functions, and the first thing I want you to do is to make a couple slider bars. We're going to use those to shift things in the X and the Y direction. So let's just click on slider, click in the white space, and we'll shift A from -5 to 5 on an increment of 0.1. Apply, and you have that slider bar, and let's make another one right next to it for B. Okay, so if I click over to my move tool, you should be able to slide them back and forth. Alright, so we're going to use these to slide things in a little bit. But first let's make a basic function. So how about f of x equals x? Alright, so this is just a line going through the origin, and the x value is 0 when the y value is 0. Alright, and it's 1 when the function value is 1 when x is 1, when 2 when it's 2, and so on. So if I wanted to shift this thing so that this point, let's just make a point first. Let's say point A. So the way you do points is capital letters, so I'll do A equals, and then you do parentheses. Let's make the point, well, how about AA, AB. So I want to shift this point. So it's starting at 0, 0. So let me put my value at 0 and 0. So if I wanted to shift this thing over like that and like that, so that my new 0, 0 was 2, 2, all right? How could I do that in this function? So let's go over the paper and talk about that. So we start out with something like this. Y is equal to x. So if I want to increase the y value by 2, I would add 2 to this side, right? So this is how I increase the y value by 2. And if I want to increase the x value by 2, if I did nothing else, I would add 2 to this side, right? So now let's change that to, let's increase the y value by b. So what I would do that, right? And let's increase the x value by a. So I would do that. But I want to put the thing that I'm affecting together, right? So I want to kind of affect the y. So I want to kind of change this y into something else. So it's going to be y. I'm going to subtract b from both sides. Right? So this y gets replaced with y minus b. And this x, if I were to subtract a from both sides, turns into x minus a. So it's like kind of like this blob and this blob were placeholders, and they get replaced by these blobs, right? So let's go look back and look at our graph. So if I were to change, now see I can't do y minus b. So I'm just going to add b to the other side. And then the x I'm going to replace with x minus a. Okay. And it looks like that. So it turns out that it's the same line, right? But if I were to shift it up, so I want to move that for every value, I want it to be 1 higher in the y direction. So let's go back to 0, 0. So let's increase just the y value by 1. Alright, so my new origin point gets shifted up. And if I wanted to change the x value by 1, I could do that and see it. That origin, that 0, 0 is now shifted over to that point right there. Now let's try a little bit different function. Let's change this function. Instead of f of x equals x, let's do something a little crazier like square root of x. Okay, so I have no shifts in it right now because it's just in that simple form, y equals square root of x. But now if I were to replace all my x's with that new blob, x minus a, so what happens when I do that? So inside that parentheses, I'm going to say x minus a. And then if I change my y with y minus b, but I'm going to instead, because I can't put the y minus b over there, I'm going to add b to this side so that we're adding b to the function value everywhere. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I have x minus 1. So that 0, 0, which was right there, gets shifted over by 1. And now if I were to shift that 0, 0 up by 1, you'll see right there that point A got shifted up by at the point 1, 1. So if this was, I don't know, 2.9 and this was negative 2.1, you see it's shifted in the x direction, negative 2, and it's shifted in the y direction, 2.9. And notice here that, remember, it's x minus a, so your a value is actually negative 2.1, but it shows up in the equation as positive 2.1. So remember that you always want this to be x minus a, so this is really minus a minus. So your shift is negative 2.1, although it shows up as a positive. So it's always the opposite of what's attached to the x. And then the positive 2.9 is correct because it was minus 2.9 over here, and it comes over here as positive 2.9. So we're adding, this is positive. So the b is going to match up correctly. The a is going to be the opposite sign of what you see in the equation. Okay, so now what if we tried some other function? How about x squared? So instead of x squared, I'm just going to do this whole thing get squared, because this is the x blob, and then we're just still adding b. Okay, so the 0, 0 for y equals x squared would be right there on this interesting point, right at the relative minimum of the function. So what happens as we shift it? And you see that I call it the vertex of the parabola, is the part that gets shifted over. And you see in the function, it's this whole blob squared plus 1.8. Okay, so you're going to try a couple different functions and shift them around and see how they work.